What's going on, everybody? Good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Got a couple things I want to talk about this morning. First, though, let me just say that I will be streaming with Brandon of the Hawk's Nest in a few hours. Stream should start sometime around noon. The main focus of the stream is going to be on defensive free agents from other teams that the Seahawks could or should or will or whatever, or in some cases maybe shouldn't or won't target. So last week we did the offensive side of the ball. Today we're going to be doing the defense, but I think there are going to be a lot of other topics rolled into that conversation as well because things are happening pretty quickly lately. And we're also getting a lot of rumors, a lot of pieces of speculation. So we'll probably get into some other stuff as well. And for all we know, we might end up breaking a pretty big piece of news on stream because things are happening pretty fast lately. But tune in for that in 3 hours from the upload of this video, noon Pacific. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit generally right now, and this is going to echo some of the things I said in my video last night about the Rashid Shaheed news, but I kind of wanted to put it into its own separate video and also get into some other things about what is going on this offseason because I can feel the fan base starting to, I don't want to say revolt. I don't think there's going to be a lot of revolting when your team just won the Super Bowl, but I'm getting a strong sense of unease. I think that people are seeing the writing on the wall. I think people are reading the tea leaves, and they are, I think, coming to a reasonable conclusion as it pertains to this upcoming free agency. We're less than a week away now from open free agency. We're like half a week away from legal tampering. And right now, not only have the Seahawks been relatively inactive, but it is really starting to look like they're not going to retain pretty much anybody. And you can piece it together pretty easily. Like, I think we all know that Woolen's gone. Everything we're hearing indicates that there's not really that much interest in bringing Woolen back. And part of me almost feels like the team wouldn't take Woolen back even if he cost like 3 million a year. It seems like they're done with him. Now, maybe we're being misled, but that's what it feels like is going on right now, and there's no way we're going to keep him for what it's likely going to cost. Um, we've gotten the news on Walker and Shaheed in the last several days, and pretty clearly to me, every indicator is that both guys are going to get way more money elsewhere. I think we all know Boye Maffe's likely out, and quite honestly, I don't know if anybody's really that upset about the Mafe thing. He's a decent player, but I don't think there are any tears being shed about Mafe going, so maybe that's whatever. But Kobe Bryant, that's another one where I feel like most people have a pretty good understanding that Kobe is not going to be worth to this team what he's going to get. So maybe that one's a little bit chill as well. And even Josh Jobe, we haven't really heard anything one way or the other about Josh Jobe. I guess that one could be kind of neutral right now. And same with Josh Jones, if insofar as we care about a backup that much. But point I'm trying to make here is that you look at this list and you've got at least 6 coveted free agents to be, and it's starting to really look like the Seahawks are not going to keep any of them. Like Walker and Shaheed are pretty much gone at this point if what we're hearing is accurate. Woolen, he was always going to go. Mafe and Kobe probably also going to go for different reasons. And Job, I guess that's the one that feels kind of neutral right now, but he could certainly go. And I think people are looking at that and wondering what is going on. This team just won the Super Bowl. This team is poised to be very good for the next couple of years. Why aren't we putting more work into keeping this group together? I've definitely seen Seahawks fans over the last few days pretty quickly abandon the whole "in John we trust" thing, which is kind of amusing, I have to admit, because this team did just win the Super Bowl on the back of John Schneider doing controversial things. But one thing I will say, and let me get through everything I want to say in this video before you jump to conclusions about how I feel about this. Just because John Schneider has done good things before does not mean he is incapable of doing bad things now. So if you're sitting there and you think this is bad, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you think letting all these good, valuable players go, and maybe you feel like some of them should go, but you probably feel like we should keep at least a couple of them, then I don't think you should be conscripted into liking this just because John Schneider is riding a big high right now and did a great job last year. Remember, 2 years ago, think about the free agents he got in the 2024 offseason. Tyrell Dodson, Jerome Baker, Rayshon Jenkins. I'm probably forgetting re-signing Noah Fant. Like there were some very bad choices. So in no universe is John Schneider infallible. He has done bad things before, even after Pete Carroll has left. It's not like he's got a perfect resume of success here. He spent a third round pick on Christian Haynes, who can't even get on the field. He spent second rounders and third rounders on Elijah Arroyo and Jalen Milrow. I don't know if those guys are ever going to be really much of anything in the NFL. So stuff happens, right? You can be a very good GM and still do bad things, and maybe this is a bad thing. But at the same time, I think we need to be clear-eyed about what is going on here. The Seahawks just won the Super Bowl, and when you win the Super Bowl, the players you have that help you win that Super Bowl get a boosted perception of value that is not reflected in what they actually do on the football field. Ken Walker is a great example of this. And again, if you think otherwise, you're free to, but Ken Walker is not worth $15 million a year. Even with the cap going up the way it is, I don't think you can make an argument that Ken Walker is at that level. And there are shortcomings that we're not seeing right now because they didn't come up during the most important part of the season. We've had Ken Walker for 4 years. We've seen the good and the bad. And there's a lot of good, there is bad. Right now, I feel like a lot of people are sweeping the bad under the rug because the bad didn't really show up in the last 4 games of the season. Week 18 and then 3 playoff games. But over the course of his career, he hasn't been able to carry a full workload or anything close to it without getting hurt. And remember, the games that he misses as an injured player are only telling part of the story. What about the games where he starts the game, plays the first part of the game, gets hurt, and misses the end of the game? That stuff matters too. Like I remember when we played the Steelers a few years ago, he started the game, started it well, and then he got hurt, and I don't think he finished that game. So you've got a lot to go into that here. The injuries, the inability to take on a full season-long workload, the dubious value on third down, and even though I think it's overstated, the dancing. There are plays where Ken Walker will not get yards that a running back with a better vision and understanding of risk versus reward would have gotten those yards. So right now we're not seeing those flaws, but step back and you can see them. So he's worth a good amount of money, but he's not worth what he's probably about to get because he just won Super Bowl MVP. Same for Rashid Shaheed. And I say this as someone that really wanted to bring Shaheed back. And I would have probably given him more than most people. But he's not worth $20 million a year. He's not. Somebody will give him that, I think, because that's how this works. But I cannot be sold on the idea that Rashid Shaheed is worth $20 million a year. And it sounds like that's the offer he's going to get from somebody, probably the Raiders. And what we're seeing here, and I know this is frustrating right now, and again, I want you guys to watch the whole video and follow me through here and really understand where this is going. What we're seeing right now is a GM that is looking at these players and saying, "You are worth this in my mind, and if somebody else thinks you're worth more, good for them. I'm not gonna break my view of what you are worth to match what I think a lesser GM is thinking." And right now, John Schneider does have grounds to believe that he is the best GM in football. He won GM of the year last year, and he's the current reigning Super Bowl champion. So if somebody tells Shaheed he's worth 20 million a year, Schneider's response is not going to be, "Well, I guess that's what he's worth now," and then give him that money. If somebody offers Ken Walker $15 million a year, he's not going to go, "Well, I thought he was worth 10, but I guess I was wrong." No, he's going to be like, "I'm right. The other guy is wrong." And that can be frustrating because it leaves you in a spot where you sit there and you watch a lot of good players, including some players that were on this team the last couple of seasons, or at least the last season. They just kind of go by. So I get it. But at the same time, I think we all need to accept that there is something commendable about that, because the flow of the NFL is you have players that are good on good teams. They have good years on that good team. And then the way the NFL works is that you take those players, some of them from the good team, and you give them to the bad teams because the bad teams are willing to overpay them, right? That's what's happening. We're losing some of our good players because lesser teams, in many cases, a lot of these guys are going to go to lesser teams, are valuing them at above what their actual value is. And that is part of the reason why those teams are bad. So that's kind of really what the point that I wanted to get to here. Yes, this does have flaws, and there's no guarantee that this works. But based on everything we're hearing right now, John Schneider's not changing his mind just because the conventional wisdom, or in some cases, not even conventional wisdom, another GM is saying, "No, this is the way it is," right? So I know it's frustrating right now, and that's kind of where I'm leading to in this video. It's frustrating right now. It is. Um, right now, it feels like we're losing a lot of good players, and we're going to be trying to repeat in 2026 with lesser pieces. But that's how it feels right now. And that's the thing that I really wanted to get to in this video. And I know I went through a lot of stuff to get there, but I feel like getting to the right place on this topic is really important, because I don't want to say that it's wrong to feel like John might be making mistakes here. Maybe he is. He might be. It is possible that in January next year, we're watching our running game completely fail in the biggest moment of the season, and then we're watching Ken Walker somewhere else tearing it up. That's possible. But understand, that's how we feel right now, because it looks like we're losing these guys and we have no idea what comes of that. But let me remind you guys, this Dan Vien's tweet from a few days ago, I made a video about this. If you didn't see that video, go watch it. Short version, the Seahawks are required by the NFL to spend a lot of money this offseason because they didn't spend that much the last 2 years. There is a certain level of cash you have to pay out over a rolling 3-year period, and the Seahawks have been so cheap these last 2 years, they are now obligated to pump out a massive amount of spending. There's no getting out of this. There's no getting around this. If they do not satisfy whatever the league rule is, if they do not make the league happy, they get in trouble. So what I'm trying to say is, it looks like we're not going to spend money on most of these guys. Right now, I feel like the only guy we might keep is Josh Jobe. Maybe. We'll see. I don't have a great feel for that, but it's possible. But just because we're not spending money on these guys doesn't mean we're not going to spend money on players. And to kind of link to that, Corbin Smith, one thing that he was saying earlier today and has continued to say into today, I believe, is that he believes the Seahawks are going to make big waves at the edge position this offseason. In fact, I think that he suspected that it would happen sometime in the next week. So the money will be spent. And again, Corbin has inside information. Corbin speaks to people who know what's going on. New Era over here actually kind of sort of transcripted some of the things that Corbin said about certain edge rushers. Basically, I'm not going to go through everything, but the basic idea here is that John's in on pretty much everything. Max Crosby, Jonathan Grunnard, Trey Hendrickson, Khalil Mack. Like, there is interest in bringing in a big gun on the edge. So there is a plan going on here. There's no world where the Seahawks let all these players go and then just say, we're going to win the Super Bowl with backups and rookies. And by the way, not even good rookies because it's a bad class and you only have 4 picks. That can't happen. If they try to do that, if they actually wanted to do that, the league wouldn't allow it because of this. And look, extending JSN and Witherspoon is going to eat up a lot of this money you need to spend, but it's not going to get anywhere near all of it. Not even close. You could even throw in an extension for Derek Hall. It doesn't make that big of a difference. So this only takes care of some tiny little piece of it. There are, I mean, no hyperbole when I say this, there are probably going to be over $100 million in new cash to new players handed out this offseason. And that says nothing to the fact that they can create a bunch of cap space by restructuring contracts, which seems like it's going to happen in a pretty significant form in the next couple of weeks here. And you put it all together. What I'm trying to say is this. Right now, this feels bad. But will it feel bad if a week from now, let's say a week from now, the Seahawks have lost Ken Walker and the scenario I presented yesterday where they end up with Brian Robinson Jr. and Tyler Algier, that feels bad. But what if it's Achane in Miami? Like, that's possible. Miami might trade him. I think Seattle would be in on that. Give up a 3rd round pick for Achane in a bad draft. Is that something that could happen? I think so. It feels bad to lose Boye Mafe and Reek Woolen. But what if losing those 2 guys leads to you being able to get Max Crosby? What if it leads to you getting Crosby and Khalil Mack? What if losing Kobe Bryant and Rashid Shaheed opens the door for you to get Tyler Linderbaum? We don't know where this ends, but we do know money needs to get spent. And you're not going to close the gap here. And I know I joked about it in the video yesterday, but realistically, you're not going to close that gap by giving out a bunch of little 1-year deals to depth players. I talked about the Benson Mayoa thing, but you can sign all the Benson Mayoa as you want to. You're not going to make a dent into this. Not really. So therefore, you've got to you've got to give out some bigger contracts here, or else you're not going to close the gap here. It's a big gap, and part of the reason why the Rams traded for Trent McDuffie and are willing to give him a giant contract is because they have a lot of money they need to spend too. It's not just about making themselves better, it's also about meeting the minimum standard for spending. What I'm trying to say is that with the information we have right now, it feels like the Seahawks are going to have a very lazy offseason, and that's very frustrating because the team just won it all. And I'm not saying what I'm saying because I need people to blindly trust John Schneider. I don't. I don't want that. I don't need that. I don't think that people should blindly trust John Schneider. I think that he is perfectly capable of doing bad things. I've seen him do bad things as recently as a couple of years ago. But what I am saying is, I don't think there's any scenario where the Seahawks lose all these players, replace them with randoms who are dirt cheap and rookies who aren't ready, and then they go, okay, we're good. Go win us another Super Bowl, Mike McDonald. That can't happen for a couple different reasons. One, because they have to spend money, but also just because that's not how John Schneider's looking at things. Like, there's this thought in my mind. I had the thought in my mind. What if they're just going to let the Rams burn themselves out on 2026? What if they're just going to go, look, we know the Rams are going to go crazy. They're going to go all in. We're going to get out of the way. We're going to let them do what they're going to do. We're not going to try to compete with it because we'll burn ourselves out trying to compete with it. And we'll be there to pick up the pieces in 2027 when they're toast and we can make another run at it. Like I did have that thought in my mind. Like, is that the thought process here? But John's not going to do that. This team isn't going to do that. I don't think any NFL team really does that unless they're already in a bad spot. And this team just won the Super Bowl and has cap space. So people are getting frustrated that the team isn't using their cap space. And I understand. I'm not saying you shouldn't be. But understand the cap space will get spent. And I just don't see how they can do what they need to do. And by need to do, I mean literally need to do with a bunch of cheap one-year deals. So we're getting somebody. It just may not be the guys that we've had. All right. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think.